Welcome to Southern Heirlooms. I'm Ken Rivenbark. On today's show, we're presenting part 2 of the Weeden House Museum from Huntsville, Alabama, and the life and works of Maria Howard Weeden. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Southern Heirlooms with Ken Rivenbark.
The answer to all your car buying questions.
Now in the hands of every salesperson at your North Alabama Honda dealer.
Saving you lots of time.
Folks love the Accord. How many to choose from?
48 today.
Pick your favorite color and trim level.
Best price?
$199 a month.
Compare it to a Camry.
Take a look.
Gas mileage?
Up to 36 miles per gallon.
That's one giant leap in car sales technology.
And it's only at your North Alabama Honda dealer. Huntsville, Decatur, and Florence.
Hi, I'm Tommy Battle, Mayor of the City of Huntsville. I want to welcome you to the Weeden House. The Weeden House was built in 1819, same time Alabama became a state. And the Weeden House is one of the oldest home museums in the state of Alabama. Come visit the Weeden House. It's one of our 5 museums in Huntsville. Come and stay and enjoy your stay here.
Today we are revisiting part of Alabama's rich historical heritage as seen through the windows of one home, the Weeden House in Huntsville, Alabama. The Weeden House is a superb example of federal architecture. This style of American architecture was generally popular during the period of 1776 through 1835 and was greatly influenced by the light and elegant designs created by English architect Robert Adams. In many of writings about the Weeden House, the home is described as Adamesque, after Mr. Adams. The house at 300 Gates Avenue, originally named the Aspen House, was built in 1819 by Henry Bradford, who desired for his residents an impressive townhome in the federal design. It was an ambitious architectural feat for Huntsville for 2 reasons. The home was built intact, meaning the house was built at one time. Most federal homes of the period were constructed with one main room per level with a kitchen attached, and then later added to. The other reason was the refinement and use of woodwork. No other surviving federal period Huntsville house has woodwork as elaborate as that of the Weeden House. To place this on Alabama's historical timeline, it was in 1811 that Huntsville became the first incorporated town in Alabama. However, the recognized birth year of the city was 1805, the year of John Hunt's arrival. We'll be right back.
To say you've worked too hard to let this economy jeopardize your future would be an understatement. While you don't have control over today's markets, you do have control over how well prepared you are for the future. That's where the Keene Group at UBS Financial Services Incorporated in Huntsville can help. Wealth Management Advisors Penny and Tom Keene will create a plan that can help you weather the uncertain markets while keeping you on track. Call or visit our website, the Keene Group at UBS Financial Services Incorporated in Huntsville. Member FINRA SIPC.
After 20 years, Artistic Images Gallery has now moved to the corner of Bob Wallace and L&N, next to R&R Antiques and Salon Catera. We still offer the expert framing and art gallery you've come to expect. Artistic Images Gallery.
Welcome back to Southern Heirlooms. I'm Ken Rivenbark. On today's show, we're talking about the Weeden House Museum and the incredible life of Maria Howard Weeden. Joining me is Gay Money. Gay has worked diligently for years, helping to secure the legacy and the structure of the Weeden House. She also chairs the Weeden House Committee. Gay, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Ken, for having me.
I'm so excited that you're able to join me today, and we want to have a conversation on the life of Howard Weeden. We're going to be showing some of her works later. Let's just start talking about how the Weeden family came to Huntsville.
Well, Dr. Weeden moved his family to Huntsville, and they lived on what we call Redstone Arsenal today. And Weeden Mountain on the Arsenal was named for the family. In 1845, he bought the house in town, mainly because he wanted his children to have a great education. And at that time, there were many good schools, seminaries, private schools in Huntsville for his children to be educated.
Okay, and shortly after, only 1 year after he had purchased the Aspen House, which later we know as the Weeden House, he was on a trip to New Orleans to sell his cotton crop, and tragedy struck and he passed away. Right. 6 months later, Maria Howard Weeden was born. Yes. So let's take it there and talk about what type of life do you think they had prior to the Civil War?
Well, I think that he left his family well cared for because he was a rich man at that time. And so they had no worries as far as, you know, they had their money to live on. But things changed.
Okay, and then here comes the Northern aggression, the Civil War.
Now, Howard graduated from the female seminary.
Here in Huntsville.
Right, and she loved art and she loved music and was good at both. But of course, art was her main talent.
And if I'm understanding correctly, because of her love of art and what her talent that she showed, her mother hired a Huntsville artist, William Fry, and to give her private lessons, and that helped escalate her talents even further.
That's correct.
Okay, things changed.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Well, of course, the Civil War began, and when the troops came in, they confiscated the Weeden House.
This was 1862.
Right, as well as some of the other historical homes in Huntsville for their officers to live in. And the family, for a few days, or maybe longer than that, lived in the stables.
Yes, they had taken over the Weeden House, and the officers lived there. Yes. And they liked the Weeden House because it was a large stable in the back for the horses. And they made Maria Howard Weeden, her sister Jane, and her mother move into one of the servants' quarters with the servants.
Right, and then they decided in the middle of the night to get their horses and their buggy and go to Tuskegee, where the older sister lived until the end of the war.
Okay, and then after the war's over, it's safe to come home. They come home and find that the Weeden House has been plundered, their finances are gone, and life starts to change. Absolutely. Maria Howard Weeden, she was, as Howard as she liked to be called, began taking on odd jobs to help meet the personal finances for the family. Let's talk about that.
Well, she did place cards for dinner parties.
For neighbors or whomever.
And she did with, you know, maybe wildflowers out of her mother's garden. She did invitations to parties, get well cards, all types of things of that nature.
And she also started teaching art classes for children.
Yes.
To help make means for the family. Let's talk about her now. There was a poem that she had taken that someone else had written, and she rewrote it in a black dialect and illustrated it into a little book. And she had painted some of the pictures of her servants that worked with them. And this is what sort of catapulted her career. Other people saw it and were really crazy about it. And so what happens next?
Well, you know, when they were in Tuskegee, and the family that they became close to, Elizabeth Price, was her mentor, and she took a lot of these paintings and she promoted Howard as well. But she would sit and paint, and when she would paint some of the servants of some of the neighbors, she would talk to them. And then she would compose a poem from what their discussion had been, which I think was just great.
Yes.
Some in dialect, some not in dialect.
What I love about Howard Weeden, and we'll see when we show some examples of her work a little bit later, her focus was to capture the spirit and soul of the individual. And I think she's done that so incredibly well. she was the first American artist to paint the servants are black Americans in this manner. Her counterpart of these years was Joel Chandler Harris, and his illustrations were more characters. So this was the first American artist who really created beautiful images of these individuals, and she wanted them immortalized.
Yes.
And that's fascinating.
And you know, he came down to Huntsville to meet her. In fact, he said, I'm going to Huntsville to meet Mr. Weeden. Mm-hmm. So many people thought of her as a man because her going by Howard Weeden. And you know, she also wrote articles for the Presbyterian Church in their newsletter.
The Chronicle.
The Chronicle.
Yes.
And she went by Flake White, which is a oil paint color. The name of an oil paint color, Flake
that's
White.
fascinating.
So that's interesting too.
Very much so. And in these writings, she wrote much about her moralistic views. And again, I think the spirit of Howard Weeden comes through in these writings. She wrote what was passionate to her. And although she was frail and sickly all of her life, when it came to her art and her writing, she was a powerful force. She knew what she was doing. She knew what, you know, what she wanted to express with her pen and with her brush.
And you know what's amazing to me is that she had a brush with just 3 hairs. And she painted all those beautiful watercolors with a brush like that. That is amazing.
And she suffered from severe nearsightedness.
Yes.
So she was working very, very up close.
Yes.
So it is amazing. As we close here, what is the most important thing about Howard Weeden that resonates with you?
Well, I think at the time, during those times, a woman of small stature, frail, and poor eyesight could do such wonderful paintings. And she was brave. I mean, you know, taking care of her family that way. Mm-hmm. I just think she was wonderful.
I agree totally. And in closing, I would like to just build on what you just said. Howard Weeden could have easily said, you know, I suffer from this, I suffer from that, we've been through hardships. She faced adversity face on, and she supported her people, she took care of her people, and also with the servants. She also, in many of her writings, she talked about how they took care of her, she took care of them, they were part of her family. They didn't just work for her, they were part of her family. And she turned this into a really positive situation. And we today are better for it.
You know, I'm just sorry that she didn't write more books.
Yes.
With just the 4. We could have just had more and more and more art and poetry. But unfortunately, that did not happen.
When we return, we're going to be talking about the 4 books that Howard Weeden wrote, looking at examples of her art and delving into the individuals that she painted. Stay tuned. You're watching Southern Heirlooms.
Brooks & Collier welcomes you to their end-of-season savings on outdoor furniture. Thanks, guys, but you and I know full well that with the cooler weather, the season's just begun. Lottie and I think alike. Outdoor fashions, big green eggs, green fun. Brooks & Collier.
Rivenbark & Roper Antiques began serving customers June 2006 and is regarded as Huntsville's finest antique gallery. The shop represents high-quality antiques from the 18th to the early 20th centuries, the largest collection of silver in North Alabama, Chinese and Japanese export porcelains, and original art from around the world. From day one, the business has focused on 3 principles that have established the essence of Rivenbark & Roper Antiques. They take great pride in providing their clients with the highest quality merchandise at the lowest prices possible, offering hospitality and personal service to build a relationship of trust, and to celebrate with customers the joy of bringing beauty, style, and elegance to their homes. Rivenbark & Roper Antiques has gained the reputation of offering a high-quality product with extensive personal service. The shop has lived by the strict policy of not selling reproduction furniture and abiding by the original guidelines of not selling furniture newer than 1940. Their strengths are reflected in their dedicated customers. Customers know that when they engage in business with Rivenbark & Roper, they can count on truth, knowledgeable information, and customer dedication.
Welcome back to Southern Heirlooms. I'm Ken Rivenbark. I'm joined again with Gabe Money, and we are standing in the newly refurbished Weeden Gallery. Tell me about what room are we in actually?
Well, actually, we're in the East Parlor.
Okay.
There were two parlors, the West and the East.
All right.
And this was made into a gallery in
And
2013.
And it is beautiful. All of the works in this room are original pieces by Howard Weeden. The works behind us are original watercolors, and I think it's an excellent collection because it shows a variety of genres that Howard Weeden painted. We have, of course, the portraits that we've talked about. Here is the Episcopal Church, so she did landscapes or buildings, as well as, who is this?
These are two kittens that she did, and not only did she do people, but some animals, which we were surprised to find.
And she also painted incredible flowers from her mother's rose garden. Gay, let's take a look at some of the other incredible works of art.
Sure.
Shall we? Gay, we're standing in front of this beautiful portrait. It's called The Milkmaid, and if I'm understanding correctly, this is one of Howard Weeden's largest works. How did the Weeden House Museum acquire this painting?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, this is an oil painting, okay, rather than a watercolor like most of her paintings were, which she did quite a few oil paintings, but they're not as famous as the others. The Milkmaid came to us by the way of the Will Halsey family. And Will's grandfather, Dr. Samuel Lowry, took care of the Weeden family. Back in those days, sometimes people could not afford to pay the services of a doctor, and in turn, they would do something like a painting. And this is what Howard Weeden did for Dr. Lowry to pay for the services.
And I think that's fascinating because we've talked about the hard times that the Weedens went through after the war, and this is just an incredible way. This is how she helped support her family. When we return, we'll be visiting some other rooms of the Weeden House and looking at other incredible works of art. Stay with us.
Established in 1978, Randy Roper Interiors is the premier interior design firm for residential and commercial projects. The goal at Randy Roper Interiors is to work with each client to create a beautiful, warm, and comfortable space that reflects your individual tastes. Randy Roper Interiors offers one of the largest resource design libraries in Alabama and is located at 311 North Jefferson Street in downtown Huntsville. Randy Roper Interiors, where experience matters.
Welcome back to Southern Heirlooms. I'm Ken Rivenbark. We're standing in the West Parlor of the Weeden House, and Gay, there's an incredible landscape painting here that I want to hear about.
Okay. Well, this was painted by William Fry, a very prominent artist during the middle of the 1800s. This is reminiscent of his home in Austria.
Incredible.
He gave private lessons to Howard Weeden during her childhood. So we're happy to have this great painting.
Absolutely, and it goes right along with her heritage.
Absolutely.
There's another painting in this room I really want us to focus on. Can we go take a look?
Sure, let's go.
Gay, we're standing in front of this incredible portrait of General Bartley Lowe. What can you tell me about him?
Well, General Lowe and his family lived here in the Weeden House for 16 years.
Oh, wonderful.
So we're happy to have a resident portrait of someone who actually lived in the house.
Now, not only do we have General Lowe, we have a portrait of his wife, Sarah, and her father. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Now, these portraits were painted by John Grimes. And John Grimes was a traveling portrait artist from Ohio. And he would come to town and paint portraits of prominent families.
Yes.
Richards Lighting has been proudly serving the people of Huntsville and the Tennessee Valley since 1963. Our showroom is home to the largest display of residential lighting in the state of Alabama and features items from over 100 of the finest manufacturers from around the world. Whatever your style, crystal or contemporary, wrought iron or rustic, traditional or transitional, Richards Lighting can help your home come alive. Whether looking for the one perfect fixture or lighting your entire home, the highly experienced staff at Richards is here to serve you. Richards Lighting. Come imagine the possibilities.
Welcome back to Southern Heirlooms. I'm Ken Rivenbark. I'm again joined by Gay Money, and in keeping with the tradition of Southern Heirlooms, we want to talk about some collections of items that are of the era of Howard Weeden. Gay, let's start with this dress in front of me.
Okay. This is typical of maybe what Howard would wear during the daytime. The high neck blouse and the black skirt. And here, this is interesting, is the glass holder. And of course, she, with her bad eyesight, would need these. And this clips on the waist.
And this is circa 1860, 1880. What about the dress?
Well, the dress is probably around the 1890s and 1900 because it does not have any train to it. And
okay.
The blouse is
and the brooch is Victorian, and it is a cameo made out of black jet.
Here we have a great collection of bags or purses that they carried during that time and on into the 20s. Beautiful sterling silver compacts bags. And here we have this beautiful dresser set.
Yeah, this dresser set is English, is circa 1840 to 1860. And Gay, I think this would be the type of box that Howard Weeden would have used prior to the Civil War.
Probably not there when they got back.
Exactly, as they lost most of their personal belongings. Let's talk about some of these individual bags. This is one of my favorites. I'm going to let you hold this up.
Isn't it beautiful?
And it is a wrist purse. It has two separate little purses. There is a cabochon sapphire in the middle. And what would you have carried in that little bag?
Well, obviously not a lipstick, but maybe a little handkerchief.
Or a little change.
Or a little change.
Okay,
yeah.
I think it's just exquisite. And this is Weeden and Davis. Right. The beaded purses are French. And this is beautiful. Look at the stones on this.
How long did it take to make this, do you think?
One thing that I read said there are 1,000 beads per square inch.
Unbelievable.
So that the work in it is exquisite. This is the oldest bag. This is a child's purse. It's red beads. It's circa 1840, 1860. I think it's just adorable. And for the age to be in such excellent condition.
Great.
And one more I want to show you here. This is a Weeden and Davis bag. This is probably dates to the 20s, maybe even to the 30s, but this is hand painted, and this was painted through silk screen, and it was very fashionable of the day. Beautiful. And I was doing a little bit of research on the compacts, and the compacts became very fashionable in the 20s with the flappers, and it was during this period that it became socially acceptable for ladies to primp in public. And I thought that was fascinating. And so after this, they would started to wear little compacts as purses on their arms, and they would just open up, powder their nose, take a look, maybe look over their shoulder to see who was behind them. So again, it's quite fascinating. And Gay, we have two examples of some beautiful Victorian dresses. Let's tell our viewers about them.
Okay, this dress is actually called a walking suit, even though it looks like it's one piece, because of this piece that comes down of the velvet that makes it look all one piece. This is what someone would wear to church or walking down the street, and beautiful lace with a cameo pin, of course, which was typical of that time.
And what about this hat?
Oh, isn't it pretty?
It is gorgeous. What kind of feathers are those?
Those are ostrich feathers.
Ostrich feathers.
Yes, and every lady wore a hat, you know. They had to wear a hat when they were going out. So just beautiful.
Excellent. And we're going to step back here and show this other example we have.
Yes. This is a mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, mourning dress with beautiful black jet beads. This is something that, and the mourning bonnet. This is typical of what one would wear after a death in the family. And they wore them for about 6 months after a death.
Right. And Gay, we have an example of a beautiful Victorian mourning purse, and this is out of jet beading also. And you have an interesting pair of shoes.
Yes, I do. Isn't that, look how small these shoes are, and with the gold beading on the
leather?
On the leather.
Wow.
And these were well worn.
And these date to like 1860, 1880 time period?
Right.
Very good.
The heel.
And one thing I want to add about the morning outfit, as we've learned from Downton Abbey, after someone lost a loved one, the ladies would wear black and with the jet beading. Then it would transition to a dark purple, as we have here, and then to a lavender as they merge back into their normal routine. So I think history is just fascinating. Gay, thank you for sharing your collection of gowns with us, and we'll be right back.
Salon Catera is the place where style meets care and individual attention. At Salon Catera, we know that people may forget what you said, may forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Salon Catera, a natural formation of complete beauty. Come visit the Little Green Store on Montesino Mountain. The Little Green Store carries art, ceramics, jewelry, and gift items representing the work of over 100 artists and artisans. Every piece is American-made, and most of the art showcases the creative pulse and energy of Huntsville and North Alabama. Engage with your community and give local artists a voice when you purchase local, high-quality, and environmentally friendly art and design. The friendly staff at the Little Green Store is eager to assist you in finding special and unique gifts for every occasion. The Little Green Store on Montesino Mountain.
In 1893, Howard Weeden had a small exhibit at the Chicago's World Fair. While there, she visited the exhibits of other artists, and two in particular portrayed African Americans. These were portrayed, though, in a comical, minstrel way, and for better words, making fun of them as individuals. This highly offended Maria Howard Weeden. She came back to Huntsville full of energy, and she said, "This is not what our people look like. I want to portray them as they really are." Today, we are so thankful to Howard Weeden for providing us that legacy. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, we know and can see the spirit of these individuals, and their images live on in history forever. With a heart full of gratitude, I'm Ken Rivenbark.